Interested in doing business with the government?
All right, so it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the presenter for today, Ms. Monica Randall. Monica is the founder of the Randall Group, and she's also the SBDC consultant for the NJSBDC here at Rutgers Newark in the area of government procurement. Most likely, if you request assistance concerning, the federal certifications, you know, um, how to get into the federal arena, she would most likely be the consultant that we assign you to. So without further ado, I will turn the rest of today's presentation over to Monica.
Thank you, Priscilla. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to either be with us before you eat or if you plan to eat after the session. Either way, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then we'll jump right in and get started. I have the Q&A box pulled up on my screen. I don't know if it will stay there. So I'll try to get to questions as we move forward, but if I don't stop and answer your question, no worries. When the presentation is over, I will go back to the Q&A box and make sure I grab every single question and get everything answered for today. So let's get started. So today's webinar is about government contracting. You have your widget, you want to sell it, you want to pitch it to the government. Why? The government has these huge budgets for spending volume on goods and services. And so if you're not currently providing your services to the government, after today's webinar, you should be able to change your mind a little bit about that. All right, and definitely consider operating in the government space. From the federal side, typically bullet number 1 here, they typically spend about $500 billion in a particular fiscal year on goods and services. And what's the government fiscal year? Typically a business's year end is January to December, not the federal government. Theirs starts October 1 of one year and ends September 30th of the following year. So with that being said, that's when spending occurs. So we all know that you always hear on TV around October, November, the government's going to shut down if they don't sign, and finalize the budget. The government's currently operating on a continuing resolution. That's what that is. So typically the budget for which should come out, meaning each agency receives the money that they're going to be allotted by Congress to spend on goods and services, that typically should be given to them October 1. It never does. It's never given to them. I used to work for the government for 23 years. We never got our budget to start spending and getting those things that we needed to be able to run as an agency. We never received that money October 1. We usually would receive that money into the new year, meaning October, November, December. They're, the senators, whomever, Congress, they're fighting with each other over what the budget's going to be. So understand that when you're looking for work around that time, it won't be a lot. Why? Because I don't have a budget. It's hard for me to put contracts out for bid if I don't have a budget. So with that $500 billion, I want to say it's being spent from October to September, but not really. It's more like, should be October to September, but it's more like by the time they receive the money, you're January of the following year. So that gives me 9 months to spend the money that Congress allots me on the goods and services that I need. But understand this, every dollar must be spent by September 30th. Irregardless of when I gave you your money, you must spend it. And what the government does is if the money that's allotted to them to purchase goods and services that they need to operate as an agency is not spent by September 30th, the government takes whatever's left in there, they take it back. And then you jeopardize as an agency yourself of being able to receive that same amount of money or more for the following year. So why am I kind of talking about this so much? Because you need to understand when to reach out. So the first thing I said to you was the budget should come out October 1, but it typically doesn't. So from October to December of every year, Federal government agencies typically don't have a lot to spend. So you're not going to find a lot of work for bid. It's slow, it's quiet, no one's returning your phone calls, no one's responding to your emails. That's why I have no money. I really have nothing to talk about right now. Come January, all the way through July, August, it's like, especially June through end of August, a spending frenzy. So we went from the worst time to look for work, October, November, December of every year. And then the best time to look for work is when? March, April, you're shaking hands virtually, of course, because of COVID, kissing babies, you're putting yourself out there, you're attending events, etc. Then the spending starts. Come June, July, August, especially August, into beginning of September, they are buying everything they can, even stuff that they don't need, they meaning the federal government. So that's the best time to look for work. But you should never wait until June comes and then start looking for opportunities. What happened to the shake hands, kiss babies? So make sure you're building those virtual relationships October, November, December, all the way through March, April. So when they start spending, they know who you are. What we typically try to do is we focus so much on look for work, that we forget to actually build a relationship. And how it works in the federal government, no relationship, no contract. I'm not willing as a contracting officer to take the risk on hiring you when I know nothing about you and I've never worked with you before. So I gave you that little extra information there so you can kind of write down what's the best time, what's not a great time for us to be reaching out. And then when should we really be going hard trying to get these federal government contracts? I've now set that timeline for you. And guess what? It doesn't change. It's the same every year. All right. And then the last bullet tells you that of that 500 billion that's being spent on goods and services, Congress also imposes goals on these federal agencies so that there is small business participation. And so let's walk through what that 23%, what that breakout looks like. All right. So the 23% includes the 8A program. So if I am FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and I'm provided with $2 billion to spend from October 1 to September 30th, they would like to see of my $2 billion, at least 23% go to small business, which includes the 8A program. Then they want to see another 5% of my $2 billion go to SDBs, then another 5% to the Woman-Owned Small Business Program, and then bringing up the rear, we have another 3% of my $2 million budget for HubZone and service disabled vets. Those are the goals. So that's the good news, that the government recognizes that there should be small business participation. And for those who hold certain certifications, like the ones I've listed here, let's also set something aside for them. That's the good news. The bad news is a lot of agencies are not meeting their goals. And there is no punishment, there are no repercussions whatsoever for them not meeting the goal. That's the bad news. So they gave us something, but then it's not really worth the paper that it's written on because there's no mandatory mandate that they meet these goals. It's do your best. Try to have inclusion across these programs if you can. If you can't, there's no punishment. We're not going to reduce your budget for the following year, or it's more like a tap you on the hand and give you your next pot of cash for the current fiscal year and send you on your way. And then every year they have to go, they meaning the federal government agencies, have to individually go before Congress and let them know in writing how, well, in person, as well as provide a written report of how they did on their goals. So some agencies are hitting it out of the park. So where you're going to find the majority of your contracts being awarded will be the GSA schedule, which we're about to go through in just a second. That's a way for your federal customer to be able to award a contract, and the 8A program. Those are the two popular ones. So that 23% of my total 23% of my $2 billion being set aside for small business, which includes the 8A program, most agencies are meeting that goal. That's really the goal that they go after, like on a consistent basis, like 23%, guys, 23%. We need to make sure that at least 23% of our total budget is set aside for small businesses, which includes any awards that we set aside in the 8A program. So 90+% of your federal government agencies are meeting that goal. It's the other certifications where the issue lies. Okay. And then also we could have a whole conversation about bundling. You know, how they're having these huge contracts that they're putting out there for bid, and they're purposely making them so large so the small business cannot participate. But that's a different subject for a different day, but you're going to run across those as well. All right. So there's some challenges, but I wanted you to know that there is something out there for us. We just have to go forward. And also we need to be knowledgeable about what that something is. All right. Everyone have a
Bye-bye.
great day. Bye-bye.